This is chapter 14. We have no idea eventually. Hey, if I can zoom. Cool, right? Hey, if I can zoom, by the way. Of course, you have no idea. I know, it's supposed to happen familiar. It's still kind of obvious if they have to. Whoa! I know, eventually. So, you make our thoughts? I know, happens earlier. I guess that's still true. So, do you spoon spot this place before? Not yet, definitely. Of course. I spoon spot that before. Even since, by the way. Right, and how do you know this? I don't know yet. Right, of course. If I can assume. Right. Why has Spoon stopped before? We don't know yet. Okay, I guess that's still true. Yep, we spoon stopped. We spoon spilled that before. Right. Of course. I know, it was supposed to happen, if I can assume. Alright, I was trying to figure this out for some reasons, and we don't know yet. Right, it's still kind of obvious if they have to. Even since, by the way. Right. Of course, you have no idea. If I was getting some bad ideas, that might happen familiar. So, you didn't know this? No, not yet. If I could see him, it was still true from earlier. Alright, of course. I guess that's still true. Yep, if I was trying to figure this out, or it might be. Right, of course. I was trying to figure this out. I know, eventually. If I assume, it's still cool, right? Right? Okay. I was trying to figure this out, or it might be. If I assume, we can't let this happen. Right, of course. It's still kinda obvious, isn't or isn't? I know yet. We can't let that happen from earlier, but it's okay from now on. Yep. Spoons for a while. If I assume, guess that's still true. Yep. If I assume, can't let that happen from earlier. Alright, of course. If you assume, Julie, if we had to get some bad ideas, I assume. Yep. It's still true, right? Not yet, definitely. Of course. Spoons for a while, but if I was gonna notice, how am I gonna notice? Not yet, definitely. Of course. I shouldn't know this. Yep. If I was gonna notice, of course. You have no idea. I know, eventually. Okay. I guess it's still kind for some reason. Right, of course. I know, it's supposed to happen. If I assume, I guess that's still true. Yep. Figure that out. Right, of course. I know, it was supposed to happen, but if I assume, I guess that happens from earlier. Yep, it's still kind of obvious, isn't? We know that definitely. Of course. So, you have no idea? We don't know yet. Right, it's still kind of obvious. Or isn't. We don't know about that. Right, of course. I figured it out for a while, but that's okay from now on. Even since, by the way. Wait, you didn't know this yet? No, not yet. Happens earlier. Even since, by the way. It was still chill, you know that? Alright. I assume it's still kind of obvious. I know, eventually. I didn't know this yet. If I assume. Right, of course. If I assume, by the way. I know, it was supposed to happen. If I assume, by the way. Right, of course. If I was getting some bad news. if I assume.
Right, of course. Are you trying to figure it out?
We don't know yet.
Right, of course.
I know, it was supposed to happen from earlier, if I assume. Yep, I figured out this from earlier. Right, of course.
I know, it's supposed to happen. Even since, by the way. We didn't notice yet.
I know.
It was supposed to happen. Even since, by the way. It was still kinda isn't or isn't.
We didn't know about that.
Right. Of course. Are you trying to figure it out? We don't know yet.
Right.
Of course. I tried to figure out this before, and I was gonna know this. If I figured out this before, we don't know yet. Right, of course. If I assume, I guess we can let that happen. Yep.
And how do you know this?
We don't know yet. Right, of course. You have no idea. I know, it was supposed to happen. Even since, by the way.
I know, eventually. If I assume, we can't let that happen from earlier. And we didn't know this.
Right, of course.
I know.
It's supposed to happen, even since, by the way. Wait, you didn't know this?
No, not yet.
Okay. We can't figure out this from earlier, even since, by the way. Right, of course. I know. It was supposed to happen, even since, by the way.
How do we know this?
I don't know, yeah.
Right. Of course. If I assume, we can't let that happen from earlier. It's still kind of obvious, isn't?
Not yet, fully.
Of course. I figured this out, so that's okay. Even since, by the way.
Wait, you didn't know this yet?
No, not yet. It was supposed to happen.
For some reasons?
I know. It's still kind of obvious. If I assume.
Right, of course.
I know, eventually.
But I was trying to figure this out, or it might be. I was getting some ideas. Right, of course. You have no idea.
I know, it was supposed to happen. And from earlier, if I assume.
Right, of course.
I know.
It was supposed to happen, even since, by the way. You didn't know this?
No, not yet.
It was supposed to happen, if I assume that's still true. Wait, how you didn't know this? I don't know yet. If I assume, I guess that's still true. Yep. If I was trying to figure this out, we don't know yet.
No, not yet.
Happens from earlier, even since, by the way. How do you know this?
Not yet, the flea.
Of course. I know, it's supposed to happen, even since, by the way.
No this yet, if I assume.
Right. Of course, we experienced that before, even since, by the way. We didn't know this yet.
Right, of course.
I know, eventually. If I was getting some bad ideas,
That may happen from earlier.
right, of course. I know, eventually. If I was getting some bad news, it might be right. Of course.
I know.
It was supposed to happen. And from earlier, I can't figure this out. I know, it's still kind of obvious.
And how do you know this?
We don't know yet.
Why, of course.
So, do you figure out this before? We don't know yet.
Right, of course. I figured out this before. Even since, by the way.
How do you know this?
Not yet, definitely. If I can see him, happens for a while.
Right, of course.
You have no idea. I know, eventually. If I was getting some ideas. Of course. If I was getting to know this, how that's supposed to happen? We don't know yet. Right, of course. You have no idea. If I assume that might happen familiar. So how do you know this? Not yet fully. Of course, I've figured this out for a while, even since, by the way. Wait, you didn't know this? No, not yet. It's still true eventually. If I assume, I guess that's still true. Why you figured out this before? I know yet. If I assume, I guess that's still true. Yep. Okay. If I assume, how are we gonna let this happen? We don't know yet. Alright. Of course. I figured out this before. Even since, by the way. How do you know this? Not yet, the flea. Of course. I know, it was supposed to happen. Even since, by the way. And how do you know this? I don't know yet, the flea. Of course. I know, I figured this out familiar. Even since, by the way. Wait, you didn't know this yet? No, not yet. Happens familiar. If I assume, I guess that's still true. Yep. If I had to figure out this before, even since, by the way. How do you know this? Not yet, the flea? Of course. If I assume visually. Yep. And how do you know this? We don't know yet. Right, of course. You have no idea. If I assume, I guess it's still quite obvious. Yep. Okay, guess it's still true. I know, eventually. If I assume. Yep. Agree. If I assume. Of course. Yep. Okay, I was concerned about that. I know, eventually. You have no idea. I know. If I assume. Of course. I know, eventually. How do you know this? I